Hello everybody, welcome to episode 5 of my scripting tutorials. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching module scripts. So to get started on module scripts, you want to find a good place to put your module script, of course. So if you want to call your module script from the server, then you should put it mainly in service script service. And if you want to call it from the client or a local script, then you should put it in replicated storage. So for right now, we'll just put it in replicated storage and we'll call this item data. So just let's say we have swords and items, or we have, things of that nature. Here we can create a table, and here's how tables work. So we'll create a variable and we'll call this local items, and at the end of our line we'll return the items. So what this does is it takes the data from this table and it returns that table to anything that's requiring it. So we'll come in here and insert a script into service script service, and we'll get the replicated storage, and using the services that we taught, we can of course get the replicated storage service, and then we can get the item data. And how we get it is we just say require replicated storage to item data. This is mainly used for module scripts or getting assets from other means, such as inserting them. So there are multiple things you want to learn. So storing info in here, so let's say items.swords equals, and we'll just have an array where the title or the name of a sword would be basic sword, with things like damage, cost, range, and you might even want a function, so you could say function items. So now this will be our host, the items, and inside of our host, so we'll say colon, and then we'll create the function getItem. So basically right here, what this is, this colon, is it'll set the items as its host. You can do this with a dot too, but I highly recommend using this colon because if you see here, there's a variable called self that gets automatically set. So colon allows for self to be set, and this self is the very strict data returning back to items. But if you use dot, then you'll have to manually use items as a variable. And while some people might see that as useless, a lot of developers who use things like metatable really appreciate self. So that's what we'll be using. And it'll be especially useful in the future. So first of all, let's send into the first argument the category that we want of the item. And then we'll send in a second argument being the name of the item. So as you saw here, we have an array with the name basic sword. And what I want to do is I want to get the category data. So we'll say self category or a blank table. So what this will do is it will just say, oh, if this category, like if we put melee but we didn't have melee in the table, then it'll return a blank table. And this would be non-iterable, meaning that I can't loop through it because there's nothing in there to loop through. So now we'll just say for I weapon, or for I item in category data. So yeah, like we said, if there's no data in the table, it won't loop through anything. So there's no I, which is the number, and there's no item, which is the value, like this table. And simply we'll just say that if the item, which is the table in this case, has the variable name, and this name equals to the name that we're trying to fetch, then it'll basically just return the item. So from here we can say warn item data colon get item, and we'll just say we want to loop through the swords, and we'll get the basic sword right here. And so now it will basically warn out the data of the sword. So as you can see, we have the table right here, and it has the cost, the damage, the name, and the range. So that was the overall function of a module. But let's say we want modules to be systems, as in functions that we can call from the server and the client. So let's just create this global functions module, which that is a very long name for a module. I highly recommend keeping your modules or scripts named shortly, something that you can just slap onto a script, you know. So we'll just say local global functions, and for here we'll bind a simple print statement. And let's say we want this print to only run if we're in an actual game, if we're not in if we're in studio and we're not in an actual game. Not bad. So run service is a service which basically checks the runtime of your current game, and it checks to see whether you're on the client, whether you're on the server, whether you're in studio, or if you're just in a basic game. And you'll see these dots. So I might have gone over this in episode 1, where we might use these in the future, and now is a great time to use it. So first of all, let's use a guard clause to see that if we're in studio, well, if we're not in studio, so if not is studio, then we'll return, meaning that we won't print out anything. But then, of course, we'll come here and print out ... So what ... is it is multiple variables kind of packed into this these 3 little dots, and then we'll send these variables through this print statement. Another thing you can do is you can also use warn, and it'll basically have about the same outcome. So as you can see, if we're in studio, or if we're not in the studio, then it'll stop this function from running. And this is specifically good for debugging things. So let's say we have a bug where something happens and we don't want it to. We'll use the global function to print something out, so that if people are in game, they won't see a bunch of print statements for bugs that we might be trying to fix. So right here, of course, we have the print and the warn, and that's basically just an overview of how to use modules. In the next episode, I'll be going over how the client works. I know I said it a lot in this video, and I'll be teaching a lot about remote events, remote functions, and all this other stuff. So comment down below what you learned or what you used with modules, and make sure to like and subscribe for way more tutorials. I'll be going in more detail, and I'll possibly be doing devlogs and how to create game tutorials in the future. Peace.